What if I told you the way it has always been done is not the best way? Facing your fears will change your life. The passion behind this journey is merging two separate worlds into one with the goal of creating value and awareness for a better life.
I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery.
Welcome to another edition of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. Today's guest is someone that is very near and dear to my heart because she takes care of my girls. Girl dad, everybody. I am a girl dad. So this is something I don't talk about much, and I don't know that I've ever talked about it really on the show about being a girl dad and how important you are, Bryn Wilson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you have been a coach of my girls, now both, but especially my oldest one, Freya, probably 2 years or so. And I cannot thank you enough for helping support them and guide them in life, because as a man trying to help little girls and teach little girls, it is borderline impossible because of the wiring so different. Just to say the least of it, it is challenging for me. I cannot get a message across appropriately a lot of the time, where however you figured it out throughout your life and how good you are with the kids is absolutely phenomenal. We'll get into that here in a minute, but first I want to start off with how the iron builds your infrastructure is a premise of the show. My infrastructure is really built from weightlifting because of being a overweight kid at a young age, and heavy equipment. So iron as in track hose and bulldozers, whatnot. And that's where I got into the pipeline world. But the iron and athletics have built your infrastructure to some degree. We talked a little bit before we started recording about being an athlete, always doing something competitive, having a date on the calendar, and how valuable that is for you.
Absolutely.
Let's start right there. Give me a little bit of background about your athletic endeavors and why you always have that date on the calendar, what it means to you.
Yep. So at a very young age, I started with dance, like probably most little girls do. And I did dance for 10 years. And I think that really helped lay a foundation for me in terms of flexibility, agility, body awareness. And from there, I did softball since a young age as well. I did that through high school, traveled the country on the travel teams that you do every weekend. And more recently is, after college, I'm working the adult jobs and everything. And my day job is a veterinary technician. It's a very physical job, but it still wasn't, satisfying that need for like a sport. So went to the gym and, I was just kind of going through the motions, like lifting free weights, pushing machines around, but I didn't have a goal. I didn't have something to kind of like work towards, something to show where I'm making progression and I'm accomplishing something. This is where I got into powerlifting. So the gym that I was working out at had like an in-house competition, and I saw like all these signs posted for it, and I was like, I want to try this. I want to lift heavy shit. So I was friends at the time with Jason Tomlinson, and he actually wound up programming for me through all of my powerlifting career. And I think I blew all of us out of the water from the beginning. I loved it. Like picking up heavy stuff, putting it back down. Deadlift wound up being my favorite. Like I hadn't deadlifted since probably high school, and I had to relearn how to do it. I am a conventional deadlifter, and it became my favorite lift. I had to relearn how to do it, but it became my favorite lift. Over the course of less than 2 years, Tomlinson was able to program the powerlifting to where I set the state record in deadlift at 370 pounds. At the time, I was 132 pounds body weight.
Which is an absolute incredible feat, by the way. I'm not going to let you be too humble. And that is absolutely incredible. So.
It was awesome. I saw the video of like when it happened and everything, and I've got that saved to my phone just because it was a huge accomplishment. I still can't believe I did it. But, I was training for nationals. I'd easily qualified for nationals in Vegas, and I was like, this is the next step. Let's do it. And unfortunately, so during this time, they think it's most likely related to the 300 plus pounds that I was squatting daily almost.
Your body shouldn't be able to do that.
Nope. It somehow
Yeah.
it managed. I wound up with 4 compressed discs. I herniated 4 discs in my neck. And so doctor said, you cannot put a squat bar on the neck anymore unless you want to have surgery, possibly not walk again, all these like scary things. And I was like, okay, but for how long? And they're like, all right, 12, 16 weeks. I'm like, all right, that still gives me a few weeks before nationals. Can we modify this? Jason coming from CrossFit, I was like, I know that you guys have like scaled stuff. Can we scale my powerlifting? He goes, okay, here's some belt squats. And so, I tried that for a few weeks and it wasn't the same.
It's not the same.
It's not. Like
Something about having the bar on your back. It's like the weight of the world's on your back.
Absolutely.
And it is either you get it or essentially you die or you crumble. And like
either you're standing
there's
up or you're
something
not.
powerful about that.
Absolutely. And from there, like I did that for a few weeks. Like I was still going to try to do these nationals. And looking back, I now realized that Jason was letting me come to the realization that nationals was not in the cards. He was going to support me through whatever decision I made. He was going to be there for me, but ultimately he let me come to the decision that not this year. So that being said, it's definitely like a defeating moment. Like you can't do powerlifting right now.
There's such a defining moment in time when you're in pursuit of something. And I call it the 3 Ps, but it's push, pull, and pivot. So when you're in pursuit of something, when you set out to do a certain thing, the experience that you have over time and that vision changes with your experience and the time, as you're pursuing it. And sometimes you have to push through it, where you just have to push through. It's really hard. It's not what you expected, but it is what you signed up for, because it's always going to be hard.
Yeah.
But it's maybe harder than what you thought, and you just have to push through. Then there's times like where what you experienced, you had to pull back and really embrace the reality of the situation and not be completely emotional about it. You had to, what are the facts? What is the reality of it? And then sometimes after you pull back, you realize that I don't need to push forward. I actually need to pivot and move into something else, which is exactly what you did.
Yes. So at the time I'd done, I think 2 jiu-jitsu classes, and I did the women's classes. Had a couple of friends that were girls that did it and came out on a couple of Sundays, tried it. And it was, I loved it, but my focus was powerlifting. Like that was my 2-a-days. I was eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing powerlifting. And so it was kind of like cross training, a little supplemental type of a thing to do. And,
which they counteract each other completely. One's all about mobility, flexibility, patience, and the other one is about complete explosion in one plane. So they completely contradict each other, by the way.
Exactly.
Which is completely incredible that you're doing both.
So I did a couple of those jiu-jitsu classes, and it was during this time, all of this kind of unfolded in probably the same couple of months that I decided I probably wasn't going to be able to go to nationals, maybe need to kind of find something else. So I was telling you before that it was a Thursday. I remember it like any other day. I was driving to work and I was texting my mom. My dad had a doctor's appointment that day. I was like, hey, what time is that appointment again? And just like, let me know how it goes. So my dad was diagnosed with colon cancer, and it was a very rare tumor because it was 2 types in one. So it was a sarcoma and a neuroendocrine tumor. And he was a patient at the James. And honestly, when they first diagnosed him, they told him, you've got 6 months. And at this point, this conversation that I was texting with my mom, we were 3 years in. And like just watching my dad, fight throughout this was, I can't even describe it. So that Thursday I was, talking to my mom, and then she called me, and I was probably like 2 minutes away from work. And I could tell that something was not good. And she said, it's your dad. And I was like, what's going on? And she the texts were just erratic. And I'm like, something's going on. And so I wound up driving home. Something told me, today's not the day to go to work. Today's the day to go home. And long story short, my dad wound up, when he was getting ready for his doctor's appointment, we believe that he threw a clot to his brain and he died at our home. And that was it's something that, yes, my dad was sick. You know that the time is going to come, but we just had dinner the night before. He was still very cognizant. He was still very, he was fighting. It was still very unexpected. And, my dad was never one to give up. We were just talking recently about how, you could renew your driver's license. And when you renew your driver's license, they ask you 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 8 year. My dad renewed it for 8 years that July, and he passed away in October. I was like, it's
a mindset.
Yeah. He was never going to give up. So I lost my dad that Thursday morning, and, I wound up texting a couple of close friends, and one of them actually reached out, who also does jiu-jitsu. And he said, hey, I don't mean to be like forward. I don't mean to be, I don't want to sound like I don't care. But there is a jiu-jitsu class tonight. If you want to get yourself out of the house, get yourself around people that maybe don't know what's going on right now. And you can just you can try to forget about it for just a minute.
Just have a little bit of normal for just a minute.
Exactly. He's like, I understand if you don't, but I don't want to see you sitting on that couch for the next 2 weeks. Yeah. So I went, and that was my first co-ed class. And it was also my first competition class. And Derek was actually the one that was teaching it that night. And I don't know if he remembers this. But he said at the very end of class, like, you've seen it, like, at the beginning of class, like you check in, and then at the end of class, as you bow out, like he's usually got like something to say. And he said, jiu-jitsu will see you through the best times of your life, and it will be there for you in the worst times. And he had no idea what had just happened to me that morning. And that stuck with me.
It's amazing when you have an experience in life and you can look back on it and connect the dots.
Yeah.
Whatever the rhyme or reason is, unknown, why you had that instinct, why you actually went to that class. Everything happens for a reason. I firmly believe that, but everything happens the way that it should as well. And oftentimes we're not in control of the next thing that happens. But when that instinct comes for you to go to that class, you have no reason why, like you should.
Right.
You have every reason why you shouldn't.
Nobody would blame me for staying home that day.
But you did. Probably with no understanding of what the point was at that moment. And then that happens. And it probably just completely gave you perspective in a different way that you would have never had in that moment, without it. But it's incredible. It really is. That
was what we'll call my pivot. From that day forward, it was, I now live, breathe, eat, sleep jiu-jitsu. I was now in that gym 6 days a week. I was training as much as I could, taking private lessons. Like, this became my next thing. And, a lot of people are like, well, how did you manage that with your neck? Like, jiu-jitsu, like, you're getting stacked on your neck. There's chokes, there's, everything. And it's like, I had safe training partners. And, I make them aware before we'd roll. Or it was not a secret. Like, hey, guys, nothing crazy here.
Right.
And also, anytime I felt uncomfortable, some sort of a pain, something that was just like, I don't know what to do, I can tap out. I can get out of that situation. I'm not under a squat bar with 300 pounds where bailing gets a little sketchy.
Right. So, well, then it becomes a liability to the people that are helping you when you're squatting that heavy weight. And you don't have that ability to tap out, that ability to bail. Bailing with 300 pounds, more than double your body weight, bailing with that weight on your back can be catastrophic. It can lead to massive injuries for yourself and for the people spotting you. In jiu-jitsu, you tap out. That's it.
Yeah.
You walk away from it.
Everybody lets go. You're good.
You mentioned the high quality training partners that understand it. Derek is absolutely amazing with remembering that you're injured in certain areas, because he did this for me. I had stem cell injections in my knee. This knee is shot. And obviously I'm not doing it right now, but when I first started rolling with Derek a little bit, my knee, I was in like deep 1.5 2 years of rehab. But he knew about it, and I was seeing him for that, and then the pec injury eventually. But he was so diligent with that and cognitive of that, with the awareness component, where he just knew, I can't do this or I can't do that because it's going to hurt him.
Yep.
That is such a good quality in a teacher, is understanding the temperature of the room, is what I always like to frame it as, because that neck injury could have been detrimental to you. It could have really, really hurt you, but he was aware of it, knew how to navigate around it. And now I'm going to assume, and we haven't talked about this, your neck's probably stronger than it's ever been
It is.
because now you're training yourself to not have to squat 300 pounds, but to protect yourself at all time, which your neck is a huge component in jiu-jitsu, right? Protect your neck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time, so when I first started jiu-jitsu, coming straight from powerlifting, like I was not mobile. I was not flexible.
There's no way you could have been. No. I mean, even with your background, you were powerlifting for what, a few years?
I think like 2 or 3. Yeah.
2 or 3. Mm-hmm. So you were in one plane all the time, no rotation whatsoever.
Nope.
And you didn't want to rotate. Like you
No.
wanted to be
really
symmetrical in this one plane for this one movement for 3 to 5 seconds, whatever it takes to get that lift out. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's your sport. Now you're turning it completely upside down, and you need to be able to wrap your legs around someone's head, and you need to be able to withstand, hyperextension a little bit and uncomfortable mobility, things that, like just with a bench press and with a squat, where your upper body is so tight. Like shoulder mobility is probably one that hinders me more than any. Mm-hmm. But it's not common to have a powerlifter that has good shoulder mobility.
No.
Because they're not supposed to.
I couldn't touch my ear to my shoulder. When I was powerlifting, it was like here, and that was it.
Well, there's no benefit in powerlifting to have that mobility
not at all.
Outside of general health. But for the sport specific, no.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. The transition could not be any different. You're going from body weight movement with mobility directly after single plane, heavyweight focus, which is an incredible transition.
I did a 180, yeah.
Yeah. You didn't compete in powerlifting very long, and you have some records.
Yes.
Let's talk about jiu-jitsu, because you're going to be humble about it, and then I'm going to not let you be humble about it. So talk about the journey from that point to where you're at today with the competition, with the accolades now, with your rank, what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many absolute amazing accomplishments in such a short amount of time.
So I think I was telling you before, I'm not quite at 3 years yet. I think it's about a month shy. I'm currently a 3-stripe blue belt. And, I progressed quickly because I trained so many hours. I was in 6 classes a week. I was doing private lessons with black belts. We would cross train. I would go down to Tennessee, and one of my favorite guys down there, his name is Nakana. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and judo. And judo is my favorite for takedowns. I love to trip people. I love to throw people. So I tried to make sure that, and that's a great part about having an association, is we have access to these people that are just so knowledgeable and so willing to share that knowledge. Mm-hmm. So jiu-jitsu, it's not like, oh, these are secret techniques that nobody knows. Like, it is an open book. Like, everybody is there to help you.
The people that have accomplished it at a high level want you to do the same thing they're doing, to continue it. Yeah. Because it's about the sport. It's about the moral high ground that you have to take, the discipline. The martial art is so highly respected and regarded as a way of life. Mm-hmm. And they don't want that to ever stop.
Yep.
It's something that you can do till your 80s. You look at some of the highest degree ranks, like some of the highest ranking, 9th and 10th belt black belts are 80. Mm-hmm. I think you have to actually be a certain age to be that high.
I don't remember the exact, but it's like 36 years or something before you can get a coral belt as a black belt. Mm-hmm. Which in jiu-jitsu, it's much different. Sometimes in other martial arts, you can get a black belt in 1 to 3 years. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu, it's rare to have a black belt before 10 years of consistent training. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which
speaks to so many things. But so back to where you're at with the evolution of it all.
So started about 3 years ago, currently blue belt, and I competed 3 months after I started training. That was my first competition, 3 months in. And it was definitely a whirlwind. I learned a lot in that first competition. And I did wind up taking gold, but the way that it worked out is it was best 2 out of 3 because it was only me and one other girl in the division. And so she actually won the first match and then was not able to return for the next 2 matches. So I technically won by walkover. I think she had gassed out. Like, I was ready to go. I was ready to fight again. Like, I was like, all right, I learned, I'm not going to let that happen again. Let's try something else. So to me, it's more of a participation medal type of a thing. I would rather have won by a couple more submissions. So I kind of, I was like, I want this again. So I wound up competing the next time in March. I wound up going to the Pan Ams. 6 months into my jiu-jitsu career.
Say that again, please.
I went to the Pan Ams 6 months into my jiu-jitsu career.
What are the Pan Ams for those that don't know?
So the Pan Ams it's like an international competition. They're held in Florida, and I believe it's the second largest jiu-jitsu competition in the world.
So a world invite, everyone from around the world. Second biggest in the world. 6 months of training.
Yes.
That math is not math in Bryn Wilson. But go ahead and keep going.
So it was a great experience. I won the first match. I lost the second one, but I was still thrilled to have won that first one because that told me I belong. Like this is my sport. Continue down the line, and I compete about once every 6 weeks. And that's not just always like the big competitions or whatnot. Like I'll do, there's local AGF tournaments that are fantastic. Grappling Industries I've done as well. And the next big competition that I did as a white belt is, it's Worlds. For white belt, they call it the Jiu-Jitsu Con, but it's all the same competition under the same roof. It's in Las Vegas. And that year as a white belt, I did take silver.
So is Worlds the number one biggest? So the two biggest competitions available in the sport, you hit them within the first year?
Yes.
About speechless over here, Bryn Wilson. Keep going. My God.
So,
incredible.
Yep. Shortly after that, so every year they're like at the same time. The Pans are usually in March, and then Worlds is end of August. And so about 6 months later, I went to the Pan Ams again, last time as a white belt, and I finished with a bronze medal this time. So I finally made the podium at Pan Ams.
Absolutely incredible. So there is such a special component to all of this that you've mentioned, but your really bad day, right? Complete setback, adversity at the highest regard, regardless of the situation, tragedy happens in your life. And then instead of running away from it or having that thing create a victim mentality for you, you face it and take on this new challenge inadvertently, or whether you intentionally went there with a bigger picture in mind or not, you end up facing it on that day and you have a split second decision to make. I can either go sit on my couch and just cry about it, or I can do something that would make my dad proud.
Yeah.
Right? Because you said he was very competitive throughout, you know, growing up.
My athleticism definitely comes from my dad, my drive, my passion for everything. He did kickboxing and boxing. So he definitely understood like the combat sport side of things.
So he would have wanted you to do that.
Absolutely.
And that's probably why you did it.
Yes.
And then it leads to changing your life completely. So an absolute moment of tragedy turns into fulfillment a few years later at a very high degree. I'm assuming this is like your calling, or this is what this might be the last chapter of sports for you, because it's such a long tenured thing to accomplish high degree of belt. Plus your passion for coaching has to be extremely high.
Yes.
Obviously with being a vet and being a coach, you have a passion for helping others, to whether it be animals or kids, whatever it is. And you coach adults too. So I shouldn't just downplay it to kids, because you do coach adults. Had only been less than 3 years of jiu-jitsu in itself, but there is a complete dedication factor that is often missed. 6 days a week, the training, the output is there. Everybody wants to have the view, but not everybody wants to climb.
Yeah.
So people want this accomplishment or are envious or jealous of something that someone has. Less than 3 years and you're a blue belt, you've accomplished high podium spots on the highest platform possible in the sport. Most people probably take 5 to 10 years to ever step foot into that arena. And you did it in under a year. There's something about the known cost of, I have to do this thing over and over and over, but I'm not guaranteed a result. Delayed gratification, something I talk about all the time. Putting in the work doesn't mean that you'll get the outcome that you want. It just means you have a chance. Not putting in the work guarantees you don't ever get that chance.
Yep.
you have what you have because you've earned it. You deserve it. And a lot of people think that they deserve something they don't have. And I don't think that it works that way. We deserve what we have earned. We desire what we don't have yet. You deserve praise for what you have accomplished because it is absolutely remarkable. And good enough is a reality check, not a feeling. So you mentioned it, you didn't really know if you belonged or not, but then you get a bronze medal. You know you belong at that point. How do you know? Because you have the hardware to show it. Where the first competition you won gold, you said participation, and I'm going to disagree because you outlasted with stamina. So call it what you want. I'll look at it differently.
Okay.
I will not let you be too humble on that because either way, you have the hardware to show it because you were there and you were ready. Sometimes just being available is the win, which was the case there because you didn't gas out and you're ready to go. You're the last one standing, right?
Yeah.
So we have, as humans, this negative natural instinct to have imposter syndrome. I don't know if I belong here. Almost a year in on doing a podcast, I still don't know if I belong here, but I'm doing the damn thing. So I guess it really don't matter because what I feel, what I think doesn't really matter because I'm doing it. Almost 100 episodes in, whether it's good or not good, I don't know. The reality check is it's good enough to do 100 episodes.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. That's all that matters. But for you, almost 3 years in, and you are a coach, a practitioner, and a very, very high accomplished competitor in less than 3 years. It's remarkable. I hope I know you do, probably deep down inside, but you're very humble. Your accomplishments are absolutely incredible. And I've talked to Derek about this, where just such a fast-paced acceleration of growth that you've had. It's remarkable, Bryn. It really is. And what you can do for women, and especially because I'm biased because of my two girls.
Sure.
But at a young age, to get that confidence into women, not only the internal confidence, but the ability to protect themselves
Yes.
is incredible. And I'm sure that's part of your passion. But I know for me, I'm so grateful that we, our paths crossed because of what you can do for my girls. And I'm forever grateful for it, for the record. Because they're both angels, they're princesses.
Absolutely
and
they are.
I want them to be a princess. I want them to be a princess that will choke you the fuck out, though, if needed. So I don't want them to have to fight.
That's my favorite. Yep.
It's like carrying a gun. I don't ever want to have to use a gun, but I want to know how if I need it.
Yes.
I always want to be able to protect. That's how I want my girls to grow up. I want them to understand the hard work, delayed gratification, but then the ability to have confidence when shit hits the fan. Because it's going to. You can't run away from the thing. You just got to be prepared for it.
Yep.
Winter is always going to come. So don't pray for a winter not to come. Just get better before it does.
Absolutely.
And the dedication that you have, the drive that you have, you said it all stems from your dad. That 6 days a week, that's really hard. And it's so worth it.
Yes.
It's one of the most remarkable accomplishments when you can do something day after day without a direct return on investment.
Yeah.
It takes time. It's delayed gratification. You obviously have an ability at a high level to apply a ton of output without a direct return on investment. Where did you get the ability for the delayed gratification? Is it the love of the pursuit, the love of the journey, the process? Is that a part of it?
A little bit of all of the above. With jiu-jitsu, you kind of hear that it's kind of similar to what you're saying. It's about being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. And so that for me applies even parallel to life, not just a jiu-jitsu position, but like I was telling you, this is my first podcast. I'm a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Well, I've done 100. I'm still uncomfortable. So you're doing great.
So we're doing okay. And so jiu-jitsu's really taught me how to, be comfortable in those situations that you might otherwise be uncomfortable with. Competing scares the shit out of me. I don't know who I'm going to be going against. Like I might know a name, but I don't know their jiu-jitsu. I don't know how long they've been training. If they train 7 days a week, twice a week, it is a huge unknown, and the unknown is scary, but it's a challenge. And every time signing up for the competition is easy. Getting to the competition is easy. Stepping onto the mats is where I start to falter.
Get in that arena.
Yep.
Everybody can be a critic on the sidelines.
Yep. But actually stepping out onto the mats, and then after, so every jiu-jitsu competition, they start with combat. And like once that happens, like all of that doubt is gone. Like I'm here to do what I know what to do.
You don't have time for doubt at that point.
No, or you've already started out behind. So there is the aspect of with jiu-jitsu, like every day is going to be different. You're going to feel different. The technique's going to be different. There's so many different variables that
just the environment in itself. I mean, just your partners that you're rolling with. There's always that asshole that comes in, wants to be the mat enforcer that needs taken care of every once in a while. There's so many variables to it.
Yes. And so for that, like it keeps the mind busy. It keeps the mind happy. And especially for, it's not, it's not like the gym that I used to do where I just like went and lifted some free weights. Like I got bored with that. Jiu-jitsu keeps me entertained. And there's always going to be a challenge. It's, I really want to master this technique. I need to, drill it 50, 500 times, whatever it might be. There's always something to work on with jiu-jitsu.
And the basics, your highest degree black belt you've ever trained with probably still warms up the same way.
Yes.
Still practices the basics every single time.
You will actually hear that the fundamentals are arguably the most important in jiu-jitsu. If you don't have good fundamentals, you don't have jiu-jitsu.
And I think that's a lot. Jiu-jitsu has such a carryover to life in general, to business in general. What are the basic things, the foundation that you have to have in business and life and jiu-jitsu? There's probably 5 things that are absolutely crucial to that foundation component. If you don't have them 5, don't worry about 6 through 100. Have them 5 and do really good with them 5, and then you can branch out and find your sweet spot. But
exactly,
the foundation being built is so crucial for any sport, any really pursuit in life.
Yep.
There's a basic component. If that 80% is covered, the 20% that's not, be all right.
Yep. And then, as you've also mentioned, the other thing that keeps me coming back to jiu-jitsu is the teaching, the passing on. I like to still say I have little knowledge because I know that there is still hundreds of chapters of jiu-jitsu left. But, even not just passing on like, hey, this is how to maintain top side control. It's passing on truly the empowerment that jiu-jitsu can offer for people, especially girls and women. And that's honestly where my passion lies. That's why when Derek and I started our gym, like I was like, I want to teach the kids. Like I love watching the kids grow. Freya is actually a great example. When she first started, I think I was her only training partner. Like she didn't want to train with, definitely didn't want to train with the boys.
Yeah.
Definitely, she was like, I don't really want to train with the girls yet either. Like I was her training partner. And now you look at her a couple years later and she is sparring with Griff, 10-year-old boy. She will help any of the new girls out. I just asked her on Monday, I said, hey, Freya, can you show me your favorite takedown? And she walked us right through it. And so that for me is huge because it shows that now she's confident. She's much more outgoing. She doesn't have that same fear that she did at the very beginning.
And the feedback that we got from her in kindergarten was she's a leader. She's always trying to help other people. I guarantee a lot of that stems from you in jiu-jitsu. I promise you, because there isn't a lot of natural ability to lead without some sort of environment understanding at that age. Like you have to have a reason why or some type of inherent ability, but it's rarely is it truly genetic that you normally are taught things or you catch things. And a lot of time we are able to catch a lot more than we're taught.
Yeah.
And that's why we become, passionate about certain things. But she was taught from you and from Mackenzie about this a bit like it's on you. You're not a victim. Like this isn't your sister's fault. This was on you. And you have to lead your sister. I've always told her like, you got to be a leader. You got to show your sister the way. And now she's able to do that.
Yeah.
Get me in my feels right now. It is so awesome to watch her look up to you the way that she does and have you be that guiding light from an athletic point, because I promise you, if it wasn't for you, there probably would have been some fights in the house about not doing jiu-jitsu because I've tried to just be dad. I don't want to be the coach. I don't want to be the parent that's overbearing and yells. I just want her to be consistent with it for a while.
Yeah.
I don't have any expectations except for showing up. If she shows up, I'm happy. And I've had to talk to Derek about this. Like, Derek, she's doing this and that. And he's like, dude, she's here. She's here.
Yeah.
She, you know, at that point, I think she was 5. It's like, she's a kid. Mm-hmm. And I know that she knows better on certain times, but she's a kid. She's here. I'm just going to be dad. I'll be the biggest supporter and cheerleader out there forever and always will be. And you get to show her in a special way that I'm incapable of doing, how to navigate through life. And she doesn't understand it yet, but you do. You're teaching so much more than jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's such a bigger thing. The sport is just the niche. The byproduct of that is the discipline, the consistency, working hard, but not getting a stripe for a while, not getting that reward, the delayed gratification. It is so powerful and has so many life lessons. I will forever be grateful for this opportunity that she has to work with you. That has to be powerful for you, though, to be able to give back.
Yes.
Because I know for me, I've been so blessed to help. I don't know how many, 40 or 50 people in the last year or so that had really tough life situations. I didn't help them get through it. I just framed it different and gave a different perspective. And they were able to turn around. Sometimes that's all somebody needs, is to look at something differently. And a lot of what you do is navigating that one leverage point or that one move. You know, you put your arm out this way and you shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. That's why you end up in an arm bar. Like, there's so many different variables there, but ultimately being able to give back.
Yes.
It is so fulfilling for me. I'm sure it is as well for you.
It is. And, you know, the progression that someone like Freya has had, even on Monday, especially like, you know, you're saying like, you need to help like lead your sister. So it's Fallon's first class. And, you know, I asked Freya to help show Fallon how to do an arm bar on me. And Freya was like right up there. She was like teaching her sister, like, oh no, you gotta move your hips a little bit this way. And you gotta hug the arm right here. And like Freya was walking her sister through jiu-jitsu. And that's where I think I told Mackenzie, I was like, they are going to be the best training partners. And some of the best jiu-jitsu duos are siblings. They can grow up with it together. They can, you know, practice at home together kind of a thing. And especially when they have supportive parents like you and Mackenzie. Like, I can't speak highly enough of that.
I want her to be aware of the world. The world is not a good place in general. People, majority of the time, are not good people, whether intentional or unintentional, but most humans are selfish because we are wired to be a survival creature. And that means that we have to protect us, number one, no matter what. That's how our natural brains normally work. I think it's every one positive thought first has 9 negative thoughts. So something of that nature. But basically, it's hard to be a positive person in general. And knowing that, you looked at these competitions in such a positive manner because you weren't worried about the outcome. You were just worried about showing up and going for it. And you didn't talk yourself out of it. Which is incredible in itself because there's no rhyme or reason why your brain should say, yeah, this is a good idea. And you had so much fear, had to have so much fear. Part of it may have been just not understanding the actual reality, which sometimes, you know, ignorance is bliss sometimes, where you just don't know, so it doesn't impact you that bad. And then you look back like, holy shit, I can't believe I made it through that. And I know that's been I would not ever try to go redo what I've done to this point because I know way too much now about how hard it really was. I didn't understand the reality then, which made it seemingly easier. But being positive and taking a negative or bad situation and turning it into a positive situation, and fear. Fear is something that's not real. Fear is something we create, like anxiety or anything else. It's really something created, whatever reason, but it doesn't exist on the surface. It's an internal thing, not external. And fear doesn't go away. I think it is impossible to eliminate fear.
Yes.
And oftentimes, whenever faced with this big setting and fear is right at the forefront from a visual component, you look at it and it's like miles long. And it just, if you're just looking at it, it's just huge. You're out in the middle of the ocean and you know you can't see any land. It's just nothing but water. And that's often fear. And a lot of time, though, stepping into it quickly eliminates majority of it, because it seems miles long and it seems, 50 foot deep, but then you step into it and it's only inches deep.
Yeah.
And you're going to trip and fall down. You're going to get wet. You might get a bloody nose, might get your ass kicked. It's not going to be easy, but it's not anything to be afraid of. But it's okay to be fearful, but I don't think it's okay to be afraid. If you're afraid, then you'll never take that first step. Being fearful of a situation is one thing, but controlling the fear is where it really comes into play for me. I know what fears I have in my life. I put my arm around fear and I tell it, fear is coming with me. I acknowledge it's there, but it's on my terms. I'm in control. You're not in control. So you can sit there next to me and you can talk shit all you want, but it's going to go my way.
Yeah.
You have to understand that at a high level.
Yeah. And I think that that's where sometimes people in jiu-jitsu may struggle with competing is, and I say this lovingly, they're scared to. But sometimes you have to, so I actually also, I'm very much a supporter of mental health. So I see a sports psychologist about once a week. And they kind of help you work through, because, like I said, I was scared shitless to compete. And
Rightfully so.
so I'm like, oh, well, let's see what happens. But it was to a point, and I know it can be a point to some athletes, some competitors, that fear and that anxiety can become crippling. And some people will maybe not compete. They'll pull out, they'll find every reason not to show up. And that to me is a problem. It's like, figure out why you're so scared. Like, what is that embedded in? And mine initially was a fear of disappointing my coaches. Oh no.
Keep going. No,
He's writing down.
You hit a sweet spot.
I had a fear that, if I lost or if I didn't perform well, that my coaches were going to be disappointed in me. There was actually a thought where I was like, will I not be allowed to compete because I was so embarrassing? And, talking this over with my sports psych, I argue that maybe my coaches didn't even know some of this. It was like, did you ever actually ask them about this? And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to voice this. And he said, well, think about when you go to your competitions, so you go to Worlds and 10,000 people compete. Half of those people are going to lose in the first round. So with the competitions we do, it's one and done. They're done. They have now traveled out to Las Vegas. 5,000 people, I'm using arbitrary numbers here, but they're probably pretty close. 5,000 people are going to lose in that first round. They've now trained for 16 weeks. They've done all this, but you know what? They're still going to be on the team. They're still going to go, back to the drawing board. They're still going to train the next couple of weeks, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to go to the next competition. They're going to try again. And, once I kind of started hearing that side of things, it was definitely like, oh. And so it was to a point where in my first competitions, it was almost impossible for me to eat and drink in the mornings. My fear was just that, had that big of a hold on me. And now that I've worked through all of it and I figured out exactly what my fear is, and one of them is the unknown too. Because I'm like, I don't know the other girl. And it wasn't until somebody told me they don't know you either. They are just as scared and anxious as you are because they're humans. And you guys are going to go out there and you're essentially going to, fight to the fake death. But it's all about stepping out onto the mats, figuring out what your fear is, facing that fear, conquering that fear, and getting through it.
It's incredible. I can relate to this in so many different ways. My competition is not a date on the calendar sporting event, it is business for me now. And I've, powerlifting meet a couple years ago, bodybuilding shows. I never got to do my actual fight when I was doing MMA training. I tore my rotator cuff 3 weeks before, so I didn't get to, which was probably the best thing that could have happened at that point. I used to race motocross as a kid. So I've always had some sort of competition, but never been truly dedicated all the way in on something except for business. And my athletic, weightlifting for me now is more about my mental health, my selfishness to be the best me for the people that matter the most. Because I truly believe that If you don't put yourself first and take care of yourself the best way possible, then no one else is going to get the best of you. So if you can't provide someone the best of yourself, then they're not getting the best version, and that's a disservice to yourself and everybody else. Put you first, and everyone else benefits, including you. And just stepping into that arena, though, back to that, the acknowledgement of fear. So you mentioned not talking about it, not communicating it to your team. It's an expectation probably to be scared shitless. It's not like it's a strength probably now that you see it. It's probably more known to you now as a strength to be vulnerable enough to acknowledge it, not a weakness. Where the weakness is probably why it got built up so bad, where you just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because of the fear of what other people thought.
Yeah.
So what? The reality is, who gives a shit? Because this person's supporting me. They're in my corner.
Yes.
So if they're not going to support me being fearful in this moment, they shouldn't be in my corner, because everything in life has fear attached to it to some degree. And now that you understand it, I'm sure you're outspoken about it, probably more prone to ask questions to help people open up if they feel the need. Being vulnerable when life is tough, it is very tough for a lot of people because of that external expectation. And I used to look up to a certain individual in my life until I was probably 20 years old. That person was my superhero. And I realized after a certain amount of time that this superhero is living a life that I don't want to live. And it's not somebody that I want to become. And I had to go through a couple of years of changing my environment completely. From 20 to 22, the old version of me died and I became a new person. Call it being buried and planted and regrown or whatever. But I had to really change my life. And when I did that, I figured out that I'm going to be my own superhero, but not who I am today. It's who I strive to be in 10 years. So it's an unaccomplishable thing, but I'm always going toward the person I desire to be in the future. And if I do that, I'm going to practice the things I need to do on a daily basis to get to that point. You put all your fate in someone else or all your hope in someone else, you can be disappointed and not be in control of it. And with the acknowledgement of vulnerability, you're always in control, because no matter what, you're trying to get better. You're acknowledging the fear and you're in control of that fear.
I think that I used to look up to people that, they seem like strong and invincible, and you're like, man, I want to be that. But now that I've
became strong and invincible.
Maybe not that far, but no, now that I've kind of, been in similar situations, I actually relate more to people that acknowledge vulnerability. Because I'm like, they are human, and they are still accomplishing world championship titles, Pan American championship titles, like, things that, I thought maybe you had to be invincible. Initially, like when I first got into this, it was, is that world champion, does she have that same fear that I do when we step onto the mats?
More than likely, yeah.
The answer is yes. Yeah. Anybody that tells you that they're not scared, like going into a jiu-jitsu competition or anything, is a liar.
They're more fearful than probably anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. And, seeing and hearing some of the women that I look up to acknowledge this. And one of the black belt women that I actually met along the way, Erin Hurley, is actually now she does like sports psychiatry as well. And so she understands more than most about like the mental aspects of everything. And she, posts on her social media about it. And having somebody that is so relatable is powerful.
Your personal development. We talked a little bit about personal development, but development in general. And the way that you reference personal development is having someone in each area of your life that is important to you, and having someone that specializes in that area that you strive to accomplish what they have accomplished already.
Yes.
I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that's how you said it. And like Jason with the powerlifting programming, you've put elite people around you to develop yourself, because they know at a high level the direction that you're heading.
Yes.
And they can help you get there and expedite that journey better than probably anybody could, because they know you and they know the accomplishment, what it looks like. It's really powerful. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future, is something that I often reference, but your closest 5 people in your circle often reflect directly to what you're doing and where you're at.
Yes.
Whether good or bad.
Yep.
So if you're hanging out with a bunch of shitheads doing meth on the street corner, that's probably where you're going to end up being at, right?
Right.
But if you're practicing a martial art teaching, coaching, you're probably going to be disciplined in that regard. And then everyone around you is going to be the same. Mm-hmm. Your network and the people around you is so powerful because it can either bring you up or tear you down very quick.
Yes.
Having elite people and understanding how they operate and how they function and where they're going is really incredible as well. Talk about culture from a gym perspective, from, Uprising, CrossFit Uprising. Shout out Jason Thompson. Love you, brother. Super proud of you too. He's done amazing, by the way.
Yes, he has.
Had to give a little plug there, but Jason, incredible story.
Yeah.
Absolute wild story. Incredible human.
Yes.
And he didn't always have people around him, but then he did. And then he created a culture. Now he created a lifestyle because of that culture. The culture of a gym, of martial art, of a sport, the locker room, the time, the training sessions are probably going to be missed more than anything with the end of the career when it comes. The powerlifting meets show the accolade, show the accomplishment. That is the view at the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. But the climb is what ultimately for me is the real success. Because every day I wake up and I come train at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it doesn't matter how I feel. I know it's going to end one day. One day will be the last day I walk in that gym. And it's not going to be by choice.
No.
So in having just pure gratitude for the moment, being present, understanding being, present and grateful for the moment is a gift. That's why they call gifts presents, right? Because being in the present moment is a gift. I have so much gratitude every day that I walk into the old school gym, every day that I'm at home training. How does that relate to you with this new venture? Because now you and Derek opened up your own academy, Ohio Academy of Jiu-Jitsu. You walk in there, it's yours.
Yeah.
You're going to coach and make an impact in your own place. Let that sink in for a second. How does that feel?
So it's kind of just started sinking in over the last maybe week. We've only been fully open for a week. And to back it up just a little bit, they'll say like jiu-jitsu it looks like an individual sport. It's one person, it's you, it's out, you are out on the mats. I would argue it's a team sport.
Absolutely.
It is a team sport.
Absolutely.
Whether it's my instructors that are part of my journey, whether it's my association that is behind me, no matter if I'm in Ohio or Colorado or looking at Portugal in January, like they are behind me. The women that I meet, I'm friends still with people that I have competed against. They beat me, I beat them, type of thing. We still become friends. And it's a huge community. Like I go against women and I compete against them. And then like we're best friends afterwards. And, they're like, hey, you should come cross train with us. Like that's part of that community and part of that culture is because especially, at least what I'm noticing with women's jiu-jitsu is it's women supporting women. Like there's not a lot of us. There's more than there used to be. But it can be very difficult to be a woman in a combat sport.
Absolutely.
And especially when I was looking around for, cross training and looking at like different gyms just to get like a different experience or like when I'm traveling for work or anything like that, it can be difficult to try to find a place. And, one thing that I've definitely developed over the last couple of years is how to find a good gym just based on pictures, just based on a website. And one thing that I would like to say is for, any woman that's looking to try jiu-jitsu or looking to cross train, take a look at the gym. And if they've been around for a few years, see if they have upper belt women. If, black belt women to me are still like unicorns. Like there's definitely more than they used to be. Yes.
Yeah.
But I have some pretty good friends. Elena Reeves out in the Cincy area has become a really good friend of mine. She's a black belt. She's been very helpful with guiding me through anything I've asked her. But like I took a look at her gym and she's got, black belt lady who has been super nice to me at competitions, reaches out to me on social media. That's fantastic. That's a place I want to go. I've cross-trained there twice. And being a woman trying to look into a place and seeing like, is this gym right for me? If you see a picture with just a bunch of dudes, in my head, I now ask, where are your girls? If you are a gym that's been around for 5-10 years and there's only like 2 no stripe white belt girls, I'd kind of ask, I'd be like, in my head,
Why?
Why? Where are your ladies at? And, women in jiu-jitsu, we've got to be supportive. We're kind of our own culture. Like when I've started my women's program, I had my first class last week. And that's something that also women can look for too in looking for a gym is, do you have something specific just for the girls? Because not only is jiu-jitsu uncomfortable because of positions it can put you in, it can be triggering for some women too. But now if I have to ask a woman to do that with a dude, that's a whole other level of...
They might be there because of an experience that happened with a man.
That is absolutely true. Yep.
And most women that have experienced that situation need that support from another woman to understand if I'm ever in this situation again, I know how to protect myself.
Yep.
It is a different level of confidence. I obviously don't understand. I'm 6'3", 235. I'm not going to ever have the challenges that you do. But the world doesn't give a shit about your challenges. Is there bias in the world? Absolutely. Does it matter at the end of the day? Does it really matter? Not really, because is that going to be your story that I'm a woman, I can't do this thing? No, you're going to embrace it and create change, which is where the real power is at. You're taking a thing that is highly needed and very fearful for most people. A lot of people are afraid of it, and you're putting it out there to help. I think jiu-jitsu in women, I don't think there is a more powerful martial art than jiu-jitsu for women.
I agree.
It's an unfortunate reality, but it is a reality that most women, probably will end up on their back at some point or in a unpleasant situation where body weight and physical difference is going to be a setback.
Yep.
But Freya has choked my ass out a couple times.
Fantastic.
Where we were messing around, she comes up and jumps on my back, and I tell her, put me in a choke, and she does, just to practice. And I'll tap eventually, but I'm almost red in the face because it's that little bony arm that gets right under.
Is.
And not knowing how to do that, though, can be detrimental. There are situations where it can be life or death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And what you can do to make impact for women is incredible because a woman that boxes at a high level and a man that boxes at a high level, there's probably not going to be anything that a woman can really do. But in jiu-jitsu, I have been absolutely humbled by people that I had 100 pounds on before. Jiu-jitsu doesn't have a bias really for size or strength.
I'll teach you leverage.
It's about leverage and technique. That will dominate any match regardless of size or strength. And that gives women a absolute blessing of an opportunity to protect themselves. This is something that it's hard for me to talk about sometimes because I am a man, but having 2 daughters has made it even more of a passion of mine now, where I never could stand hearing or seeing racism or sexism. Either one, I'm in the construction. I'm a pipeliner in the construction world. Both of them things are very, very dominant in history in the industry I'm in. Bunch of good old boy rednecks, beer drinkers, alcoholics, whatever. And it's how a lot of people were just kind of brought up. It's just a society thing. I cannot have a more distasteful viewpoint of it than I do now. And I'm very outspoken now. If I see it, I say something.
Yep.
It has not been the most pleasant sometimes with other people when I call it out for what it is. But having a guide for my girls and for women in general, I cannot recommend it enough for any of the ladies in the Licking County area that want to come check out the academy. Please do yourself a service and check it out. Ohio Academy of Jiu-Jitsu, please check it out because you will not find a better trainer, teacher, coach, mentor than Bryn. I promise you, all of you listening, I promise. It doesn't get better than this. Just ask my daughter. She's 6, going on 7, going on 27.
Yep.
And she'll choke your ass out right now. Put your arm bar. Thank you, though, for everything that you've done for my girls and women in general, because I think it is something that it's not talked about because it's uncomfortable, but it's a reality, and I think it needs to be talked about. So I hope I didn't make it uncomfortable for you. No. I didn't figure as much, but a lot of people were just afraid to talk about the thing that needs to be addressed. It is an issue, but it's not an issue if women know how to protect themselves.
No, and I think some people, they kind of put their head in the sands about it. And it's like, oh, if I don't acknowledge it, if I don't believe it, like it won't happen to me.
That just makes you ignorant.
That's who's going to happen to. And I I would just hate for it to, happen to somebody I know. And it's like, I've got this class that I can help you out with. And I would rather you be armed with the information and never have to use it than find yourself in that position and have something horrible happen.
The old saying, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Absolutely, yes.
It could not be more prevalent than right now, because that is the motto that I have for my kids. Mm-hmm. More than likely, I will be able to protect myself because of the pursuits I've had in my 20 years of training. Whether it be a reality or not, I feel comfortable at all times protecting myself. I can't always be there for my kids. Mm-hmm. My daughter's in first grade. I promise you, the bully that pushes her that third time is going to pay dearly, because one time, tell them no, make sure they know it.
Yep.
The second time, really tell them no and tell your teacher. And the third time, you knocked her damn teeth out.
Yep.
Now, my daughter's such a sweetheart, Freya, is that
she's going to get them at least 10 times.
I'm gonna tell her, like, you got to just knock her teeth out on that third time. Dad, I don't want to get in trouble. You will not get in trouble at home.
That is what
that's what matters.
That's what we've told Griff. So Griff is our 10-year-old, and another uncomfortable kind of a discussion is the bullying that's in schools.
I was getting ready to go there, so have the
Here we go. It's definitely become more prevalent in the social media era, and it's like kids are exposed to more sooner than I think sometimes even parents are aware of.
And it's not even a reality what they're exposed to a lot of time.
Yeah.
They're exposed to this fictional environment that doesn't exist.
Yes. And it's just given rise to, I think, more bullies that are more aggressive, whether it's physical or words or what have you. And, it's no secret. I think that, the teachers are like, their teacher to student ratio is high. And sometimes
the teachers are handcuffed with what they're actually able to do, a lot of them.
Yes. And it's like, even if they want to help, maybe they can't in certain fashions. And, it can be difficult for them to keep track of every single kid that they've got or see every single, square inch of that school. Kids are at lockers, maybe there's not a teacher in the hallway. And that's when your bullies are going to be opportunistic and take control of that situation. And I would want my kid to stand up for himself.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
Like you said, tell him no. Tell him no again. But, that third time, if you're still getting shoved into a locker, defend yourself.
There's no talking being done on the third round.
No.
You're going to talk with your fist or takedown or whatever.
Yep.
If you got to snap an arm in half, that's fine.
Exactly. And honestly, like, if we get that call, principal's office, and hey, Griff put this kid in a rear naked choke, I'd be like, okay, what'd the other kid do?
Yes.
Because he is not an aggressor. He's
disciplined.
Passive, yeah.
And
He's
that's
a passive,
the thing,
super nice kid. Like, if you're telling me that my kid got into a fight over something, I'm going to ask what the other one did.
Rarely do you ever see someone that is a martial arts practitioner that gets in a fight and starts it.
Correct.
They are only going to defend themselves because they're disciplined enough to know how, also disciplined enough to know how powerful it is. Most people are more scared to fight that are very good at it because of what the outcome could potentially become.
I would say they arguably try to diffuse the situation many more times before you have to resort to what you know.
I don't give a shit about beating up the guy that's drunk at the bar. There's
no
trophy for that.
Right?
Yes. I have a whole trophy case of belts for that, right? In your case, like, you don't need to beat up on someone that doesn't practice the sport.
No.
Not when it's something that you're dedicated to. Your competition is not the bar. It is being on the mat. And there's always that asshole, though, that tough guy that wants to take it too far. And no matter how softly and gently you warn someone, you fuck around and find out.
Yep.
And it does happen.
It does.
But the power isn't in... The power is not in finishing the fight. The power is in knowing that you're in control of the fight. So knowing that I need to diffuse the situation first, but if I can't, my heart rate's not elevated because this guy's just being an asshole and I'm going to tear him up no matter how I want. I see a lot with police officers not trained, and it's, to me, I don't understand it. And how you can be a person that's supposed to protect and serve for our communities and the residents of the world and not be able to protect yourself or defend yourself. But then you see every once in a while where a police officer is a trained practitioner in jiu-jitsu and has someone with one arm completely wrapped up in diffuse when they had people at gunpoint 30 seconds before.
Yep.
And the guy is sitting on their back with their arms wrapped around with one hand, and the other hand he has a cell phone calling in, backup.
Calling his backup, yeah. And this
extremely powerful.
You bring up a good point, because I wish that more of our law enforcement, our first responders, or anybody trained.
I think it should be mandatory personally.
I thought that there was maybe a county or something in Michigan that actually required police officers to get their blue belt in jiu-jitsu. They put them through their program and everything. That's fantastic. And kind of in that vein, Chad Hunt is he's one of the members at our gym, and he's now retired from the police force, but he has that martial art background. And, we've kind of asked him, how do we get them in here? And he said he's talked to them, especially when he was on the force, and he said they were afraid to come into a class because they didn't know anything. And, our argument back is, I'd rather you not know something in class than get out into the street.
You carry a gun and protect and serve our community.
Nothing.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, the military doesn't go to war without having the extensive background.
Right.
They're not coming off the street, 300 pounds and going to Iraq and fighting a war. Yep. They are defending our country. Police officers are too. And I think it should be personally, it would be an obligation to me if that was my career path, where not only am I reliable for the outcome of a bad situation, I have a family. I have to make sure that I get home to them, and I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to get there. And if you're not training, if you're not in shape, you're setting yourself up to fail in massive ways. I think that every person should have some sort of discipline physically because they need it mentally. And I think that is where, back to the schools, kids grow up playing video games. Grand Theft Auto, run around, steal cars, kill people, do whatever I want. That becomes a reality to them that's not real. And then go into the school setting, and you hear, I just seen it on the news the other day, there was a school shooting threat from an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
How does an 11-year-old know how to shoot a gun but doesn't have the discipline to not? There are young kids that are very disciplined with hunting rifles and know how to shoot very well, and they're disciplined enough to never do it in a harmful way, just like jiu-jitsu. How does it get to that point with society, I guess? And as an adult with two young kids, I don't want them hidden from the realities,
Right.
because I would rather them understand them and be able to protect themselves than be naive to them and then be blindsided. Because if it happens, it's not unknown, and they're skilled enough to protect themselves. If it's unknown and it happens, it could just completely ruin their life and never come back from it.
Well, and a lot of that stems from, jiu-jitsu teaching you how to assess situations that scare you. And, especially if you get into those situations with bullies, like in a kid's case. And, initially, it might scare you. But now you're empowered with not just the knowledge of how to defend yourself if you need to, but you can. So you have the mental strength to assess that situation and deal with that situation as well.
If you would look at an XY graph, so you have, one plane here of overcoming fear, one down here of confidence and growth. As you overcome fear, your confidence goes up.
Yes.
You have to commit. The commitment is the first thing for me that I look at. I call it Pursuit 151. It's something I came up with when in pursuit of something. Being 100% confident is bullshit to me, majority of the time. When you started jiu-jitsu, you were not 100% confident. If you were, you did not know enough about the reality of it, but you committed 100%. So if you have 200 shares of total, and you have 100 of commitment and 100 of confidence, there has to be 100%, 100 commitment all in. Only 51 confidence, though, because confidence grows as you commit, and it grows as you put in the reps over time. A year ago, when I started this podcast, 51% confident would have been the ceiling, and that was probably majority of naive and not understanding the reality of it. But I committed 100%.
Yeah.
A year later, maybe 75 or 80% confident. I'm still 100% committed. I just understand it better now. Now I know a lot of what I didn't know then and have addressed that accordingly. I still don't know a lot, but now I know I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable doing it now,
Yeah.
at least to some degree, 75%. But commitment of 100% is very, very difficult. And like what you did, committed 6 days a week, less than 3 years, you're number 3 in the world
Yes.
in your class, and number 10 in the world, pound for pound.
Yes.
Golf clap. Body weight, number 3 in the world, pound for pound, number 10. Holy shit, folks, that is an accomplishment in less than 3 years.
Yeah.
Whew. Let's take a moment of silence for this recognition of excellent accomplishment. Bryn, that's incredible. So you should be very proud. I'm sure you are, but you should be very proud because that is something that not only are you going to leave a legacy of the competition side, I would venture to say that your legacy for other people and what you do to help other people, especially women, is going to be what probably is your ultimate legacy at the end. Because the competition component is so admirable, but what you're going to do with that achievement to give back.
I wanted it to be, you know, it all very much goes hand in hand. And I'm actually in talks with a corporate sponsor about all of this. And it's like, why the competition? And it's like, yes, I love it. It gives me goals. Mm-hmm. It's a date on the calendar. But for me, it helps me feel more confident in teaching the kids and teaching the other women. You know, it's kind of like an accolade. If you're looking at, you know, 2 different instructors that are leading the exact same class, and, you know, I'm not saying that the instructors aren't equal, but if you've got somebody that maybe has never competed or just doesn't have accolades behind their name, and then you have somebody that does, like for me, the person that has more accolades is somebody that I'm going to go to because it's like, it's a proven fact. It's a proven, they've proven themselves in some fashion. You know,
that is the reality check of being good enough, right? Mm-hmm. Your competition shows that is the reality. You are good enough to be a coach. If you didn't have that, what can you really say is the reality? It's more on a feeling at that point. I'm going to venture to say that you could have a high ranking belt and not be that great of a coach.
Absolutely.
It doesn't just because
you don't have to say that quietly. Yes.
Well, and I'm just trying to navigate an example, but you think of some of the best athletes in the world are horrible coaches.
Yes.
Because they were so talented and hardworking, but they couldn't transfer that to teaching. Mm-hmm. They had an expectation that was unrealistic. Michael Jordan was one. He just expected everyone to be as driven as him.
Yeah.
And the reason he wasn't the great coach is because nobody was driven like him. Mm-hmm. And he had to figure it out the hard way. Mm-hmm. He's the greatest basketball player, in my opinion, maybe one of the greatest athletes to ever live, ever walk this earth. But he couldn't teach very well.
Yeah.
And being able to teach is such a skill. And for you to be such a high-level athlete in such a short time and be able to teach the way that you do, it's a double-edged sword. It is absolutely incredible to be able to give back that way. But I fully agree. Saying that you're able to do something is cool. You don't have to say it, though. It's spoken with what you've accomplished. The accomplishment's wrapped around your neck with the medal on it.
Yeah.
That says that world rank shows that you are more than qualified to be the coach and to lead young women and adult women and to get better. Mm-hmm. And I definitely agree. There's something about, it isn't about all the competition, the accolades. That's just a component of it.
Yeah.
That's a part of it. That is you practicing your skill at a high level against the best of the best.
Against other trained people.
Right. Mm-hmm. That is the elite level, like very rare air competition. That just carries over into being able to navigate through the teaching. Mm-hmm. It's super incredible. It's awesome.
And you know, the thing that, you know, I do the competitions and yes, they're fun. They make sure that I'm, you know, at the forefront of the techniques of jiu-jitsu and everything. Yes, medals are great. They make me feel accomplished. I'm like, yeah, I did something cool. But honestly, that's still, even world rankings, that still pales in comparison to the impact that I see on the kids and the women that I teach. Watching somebody earn a stripe, earn a new belt, learn a technique, like, you know, finally be like, man, I've been struggling with this technique
for weeks. That breakthrough moment,
Yes, that makes me feel so much better and so much more accomplished as a person than any medal ever will.
You get to mentorship, you know, like what you're doing, coaching young women and young kids in general, there's going to be a day when they're going to come back and they're going to accomplish a feat of some sort because of what you did. Like Corey, for me, what the hell are you doing with your life? When I was 20 years old, he asked me that question. And me and him are business partners now. We're basically best friends. You know, we're sitting at the Max Effort Muscle headquarters, you know, in the back office that we built. Me and him have a key for it. Like, he said that to me, I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I was nobody going nowhere. And when I graduated high school, my ceiling assessed was dead or in jail by 21. I got in a lot of trouble when I was young. And he's seen something in me I couldn't see. And you're going to do that for so many people and help change their life, just like Corey did for me, and he's done for a lot of other people.
Yep.
And that is what fulfillment to me is all about. That is what success to me is about, is I want to have certain things for my quality of life, but I want to make an impact for other people, because I don't want people to endure the things that I had to. And if I can help expedite their journey, this podcast, if it changed one person's life or helped one person out in any regard, it was worth it.
Yes.
And that happened before the show launched. It's already worth it. That's why I keep going, though. It's the little subtle messages that I get, or the acknowledgement of being able to help someone.
Yeah.
And that's true fulfillment for me. I'm sure it is for you as well.
Yep. And, you know, I don't want people to think like, oh, because, you know, I'm talking from like an athlete perspective. You know, I said I've been doing something athletic for over 30 years now. You don't have to be the best of athlete to do jiu-jitsu.
And you don't even have to compete to go and enjoy it.
You don't. You can train once a week. You can be a hobbyist, and you can still develop the skills that you need to. And, you know, we have, you know, kids as young as 3 and 4 start. And we have men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that start. It's, you know, there's no age limit to jiu-jitsu.
No, there's not.
There's no, like, you know, people are like, oh, I need to go get in shape before I start jiu-jitsu. No, you don't.
No, do jiu-jitsu, you'll get in shape.
Yes. Like, you don't need to go, you know, lose 20 pounds before starting jiu-jitsu. Like, it will help you lose that weight.
Just like I remember talking to Jason one day, and he was humbled when he did jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
He is probably one of the best conditioned athletes that I know.
Until he hit the mats.
Until he hit the mats. It's just a different stimulus.
It is.
I walked in here and got humbled real quick. You know, I was not in shape for that. And it took 2 rounds with me and Derek, him probably going 25 or 30%, and I'm gassed. It's not it wasn't my pursuit. It is a different application. You're not going to go get in condition or in shape for jiu-jitsu without doing jiu-jitsu.
Correct.
Plain and simple. It's that easy.
Yep. And that's actually, Jason is a good example to bring up, because, you know, he's a world-class CrossFit athlete. And, you know, I've seen some of the stuff that he has done. I have been through some of the WODs that he has programmed. And, you know, he's been doing that for however many years. And then he comes into an open mat. He brought his daughter, Maggie, to start training with me. And then he tried to take some rounds, and I think they were 3-minute rounds. And he even like sat up. He was like, I am gassed by like minute 1. The cardio is just so different. Like, there is no reason to think that you have to go be super fit to start jiu-jitsu. Start now.
Breathing, being relaxed, keep your heart rate down, being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation,
Yeah.
using your body weight. It's about leverage, not strength. Sometimes it's not about being stronger than your opponent. It's about having the right leverage, because then strength isn't really relevant, because you're not going to out muscle someone that has leverage in the right areas. Derek taught me so much in the short few rounds that we went. And I will be back. I promise you that. I'm being a dad right now. I know you're probably I figure you're gonna plug that. I will be back at some point, probably sooner rather than later, especially with the new academy opening up. And because both girls are in it,
Now I just need Mackenzie to do my women's class.
I feel obligated for it now. I'm also trying not to break myself completely. So
That's fair.
Yeah, which basically I'm being soft, making excuses. So that's pretty much where it's at right now, but I will be back. But in truly just appreciating that moment and being able to be patient and work for something and navigate it and get to the point where it's not a thought process, it's just natural. That has to be where the white belt to blue belt to like that accelerator really is hit, when you just do it as instinct. As a ball is thrown and coming right at your face and you grab it so it don't hit your face. When you can think about jiu-jitsu with that regard, I'm sure that it just becomes such a different sport.
I would say yes. Like at the beginning, any white belt that starts out, you know, you're we kind of say that white belt is the survive belt. You are learning to survive. Being a white belt is a lot about learning, your defenses, because you're probably going to be rolling with somebody that has been doing this a little bit longer than you. So they're going to have maybe a few more attacks under their belt. So you're learning really how to defend and defend and last for, 3 to 5 minutes or however long your rounds are. And during that time is when you can really develop, here's a good spot to pause and breathe. I'm in a good spot. Like I can kind of pin my opponent down and I can assess the situation. What do I know from here? And then as you start to develop into blue, purple, brown, black, like you're still going to be learning something along every single belt, every single stripe. And some people say that like once they get their black belt, like that's when the next journey begins.
That's when it starts, right?
Yeah,
Or
that's
really
when it
begins,
starts. And it's not just because, you've accomplished a black belt, like you're done. Like you're not.
There is no done. There is no destination.
There is no done.
I talk
It is
about
a life journey.
Yes, finding joy in the journey and not having destination disease. Because for me, I thought buying R&R Pipeline was going to be the Mount Everest, the view up on top of the mountain. 12 years of 6 to 7 days a week, all in, relentless pursuit. 12 years for one goal that I thought would make me happy. We all have goals and we've all achieved things that we said would make us happy, then they didn't. And for 12 years, that was my thing. It's going to make me happy. It's going to fill the void I have. And 2 days after, I was more empty and gutted inside because it didn't. And I didn't know why. And what I realized, looking back now, it took years to get there. For them years of getting there, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the process. I didn't embrace the moments. I didn't document the moments or take notes on it, talk about what I did and why I did it. I wish I would have documented that fully, that 12 years. And I think that's part of what sparked the passion for me now is I want to document my journey. Because if it can help someone else out, great. And if it doesn't, no matter what, I have something to give my kids one day.
Yeah.
They're going to know everything and anything about me because it's all documented. But the 12 years of the pursuit was where the real gold was. That climb up the mountain is a lot better than the view a lot of the time. And striving to get things, majority of the time is better than having the thing.
Yeah.
Because you're always striving for something else and it never ends. And so the destination isn't the end. There is no end. There is, I call it journey to your next destination, where the next destination is a date on the calendar, the goal, the next accomplishment. But it's really that day to day that is the fulfillment for me.
And I think that's where, so you'll hear or you'll see kind of like memes and jokes about it. But like once people accomplish a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, that is arguably the time when most people quit. And I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's a high percentage of people that they get their blue belt and then they call it the blue belt blues and they quit. They never come back. So as a white belt, your next belt is the blue belt. And it's like once people accomplish that, they're like, oh, I accomplished something.
I'm not a rookie anymore.
I'm done. Goodbye. And it's like, that's
the time you're just starting to understand it.
Like you have your fundamentals down and now you get to learn like all the cool stuff and like apply it.
Yeah.
But when people enter jiu-jitsu and are short-sighted, they're just going to get their blue belt and they're going to leave. And it's like they weren't in it for the long haul. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, there's a lot to be said there. I think the 2% of podcasts go past 20 episodes. So 98% of the podcasts that have started made it past 20 episodes. 20 episodes, that's not very many.
No.
And only 2% go past that. It was something, I forget the exact stat, but it was something in that regard. So having a podcast, starting one, this great accomplishment. 20 episodes, and that's it.
Yeah.
All for naught.
You make that 21st, and now you're in a different bracket.
Right. And I didn't know that for the longest time. When I seen that, I was shocked. But I'm sure it's the same thing with the blue belt. You start it, you do the thing, you accomplish a little bit of success, and quit.
Yeah.
It says a lot for someone that keeps that pursuit going and never stops.
Yeah.
I want to end the show with you having a stage to talk about the Ohio Academy of Jiu-Jitsu, how special it is, where they can find you. Plug it. Talk about it.
All right. So we just started. We are about a week old right now. And Derek Myers is the head instructor and owner in Ohio Academy of Jiu-Jitsu. We are just off of 79 on South 22nd Street. And
in Heath, Ohio.
Heath, Ohio.
Yep.
Yes. And what we want to do is we want to have an academy that is just the best environment that you can have. So culture, as we've mentioned, is super important to the both of us. We want a culture that is welcoming to family. It's your kids, it's mom, it's dad, it's, whatever. We want to make sure that it's a safe environment, comfortable environment, like something that you look forward to. Your lives are already so stressful. Your job is stressful, school is stressful, anything. Like, come to jiu-jitsu and forget about it for a minute.
You got to be able to trust the people there, the coaches. You put them at the highest regard.
Yeah.
Have to. What you guys are doing is incredible.
Thank you.
Heath, Ohio, Licking County, Ohio, anyone in the area, especially, I'm going to call out all you ladies. Come see Bryn. She's an absolute magician when it comes to being a coach, an athlete, a trainer. Thank you, Bryn, for everything personally that you've done for me and my family and them two girls. Good luck with Fallon Blair Emery. She is a wild one, and so much like myself that it scares the ever-living shit out of me. And I would say that she will be a mat monster in a couple of years.
I look forward to it.
I had to guess. I do too. Thank you so much. Bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate everything that you've done and everything that you're doing, and continue. Nothing but I'm going to be a cheerleader watching your success, and I'm glad to be in that circle to be a part of that. The Ohio Academy of Jiu-Jitsu. Check it out, everyone. You will not regret it. Bryn, thank you for joining the show.
Of course.
Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. We're out. This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.